Now, 18 families of initiates from Gqeberha are waiting for the safe return of their sons today in a homecoming celebration as part of the summer season initiation. The young men come from disadvantaged families in the Bay. Some of them were supposed to have undergone the traditional rite many years ago, but unable to do so due to financial issues. Newzroom Afrika's Siphosethu Booi joins us live from there. Siphosethu, a very good morning to you. It must be some sort of relief for the men who have undergone this initiation process and their families who are now welcoming them back home.
And that's the most important part, because, we've seen at least 34 initiates who had passed on in this summer season. So it's quite important to reflect on that issue, considering the fact that 18 families will be welcoming their sons back, and they're here. And I'm just going to ask my colleague, and just give you a sense of what's currently happening. A couple of minutes ago, they arrived here with the ward councillors and elders of each one's family, just to usher them through to the community. Many women and mothers of the community have come out in their numbers, truly pointing out the issue of a community really raises a child. And of course, this part of their life is quite important, because they left the community of Motherwell to go to initiation school as boys, but now they are young men and leaders who will, of course, usher and also lead this particular community. And I'm joined now by Councillor Bulelani Matenjwa, who will speak to us about what is it exactly that's going to be expected today and what is going to happen. Councillor, thank you very much for making time to speak to us. Please take us through the proceedings from here.
Thanks a lot. Our proceeding here is that we are receiving the men, almost said boys. We're receiving men today that in the past month or so we've been engaging with on a daily basis whilst they were at the bush. Today we sort of saying to their parents, here are your children, alive and well. From here, our proceeding is simple to say we give a background of the program ourselves. There is an initiation, there is a forum of initiations that they must also be able to give their report back to parents how they were dealing with children. After that, we have a couple of elderly people that will just impact the words of wisdom to these young boys or men, rather than after that we move to handing each kid back to their families so that they could go and have a bit of time with them. They haven't seen them quite some time. It's not more as a ceremony that we are creating, but we're more as creating an environment whereby we're just reflecting over what has happened. So parents and families can actually have a closure with their kids so that before they all go there. What we've understood and seen is that these kids have become friends across the process. So it'd be befitting that parents collect them in this manner. Because when we were sending them to the bush, we had one place whereby every parent was there, and before we send them off. So we're more or less doing the same thing. We are just saying, here are your kids.
And also just speak to us about the importance, of the cry from many family members, because I was speaking to one of the councillors who had mentioned the fact that these are young men who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Their parents came to the offices of the councillors to say these young boys need to go to initiation school. Talk to us about just some of the difficulties, of carrying out this particular program in assisting these families, but also at the same time ensuring that they are given that opportunity to become better men in society.
Yes. That was a very difficult and a hard part. Remember, out of each ward, we were, through the municipality process, given 5 children that we must be able to assist. It was hard, because who do you choose, who do you leave behind? And the criteria, believe it or not, was the most difficult part, because each parent would come and be able to say, I am in dire need. We must be able to say, out of the 18 that we've managed to take through, remember there's a limitation of funds as well, because this approach ended up coming out of our discretionary funds as ward councillors. There is no dedicated funding for the program currently on the municipality. Remember, it's a model that we are trying to do in terms of how can we best manage this process. Was some of the parents came to us with children threatening to take their lives, so we had to intervene. But you would feel and see that from the point of us putting these kids into the bush and maintaining them there through the bush and making sure that they arrive here, some are only female mothers. Yes, and again, there was no person to assist. They have to ask a neighbor or someone else. Remember now, you have a responsibility as a councillor to report from daily to them to say your kids are still okay. We must be also, as councillors, to be able to thank people that have managed to put their hands in. Parents came in and put whatever they have. We have shops around our own different wards that put their hands in. Remember, in terms of food, we had to donate food on our behalf as councillors, but we're working with owners of shops, working with your big businesses, boxers and others, to say, please put in your hand to this thing. It is challenging, but it's a learning curve at the same time. But the nicest thing is that from time to time we held meetings with parents. I think since the boys before they went to the bush, we had 2 meetings. Whilst they're in the bush, we had around about 4 meetings. This is, I would say, our 6th meeting and our last meeting with them. So we were always updating them. The necessity of saying that people are not taking anywhere, it doesn't mean you have to dictate terms to them. So it was us saying that parents, this is where we are. Remember, we are only facilitating the parents, but tell us what we would like to see happen to the next step.
And also, lastly, then would be the issue of some of these households are led by women, which is traditionally, this is I'm looking for the right word to use. It's a tradition that's normally led by men. What is the main key, message that you would like to send to these young men? Because now they go home to be men in the family home. They're the ones that other men will have to speak to surrounding issues of the family. What's the message you're sending out to them and other community members and elders and men in the community in assisting? Next year, there's going to be other cases as well. So how do you mitigate the two? These current young men as well as the elderly men to step up and assist these homes that are actually led by women in such a traditionally sacred tradition that's led by men?
Yeah. It's one thing that we saw was, I think, in our discussion with them from time to time at the bush, we did encourage them that what we would like to see from them is formulating a program out of this, a monthly program whereby we meet with them, we talk to them in terms of how do we develop their skill, how do we do their part. Because we want the same mind to be the one that encourages the young coming generation. We have said to them again, we understand that some of the households are led by mothers, but it doesn't necessarily take away from their manhood. It just gives them more responsibility towards the at-home household. And we did, I think we had in one of the programs that we had there in the bush with them, the House of Traditional Leaders, the second chair was here in Booi. So he did speak with them as well. So we've tried to pull each and every role model and everywhere whereby we've tried to impact knowledge to them whilst they were there, to say that the journey that they are taking, they must be able to transfer the skills and pay it forward to other kids as well, because now they are the custodian and the beacon of the program. The New Brighton and the area of last year, they've started the program. But we are saying this year, all across the metro, most wards are participating in this program. We must be able to develop it to be a program that sees these men coming forward. I know the Eastern Cape government is planning to have a talk with all men at some point in time. So those are the programs that we want to do. If we're meeting monthly or bi-monthly, to just talk to these guys to say that, where are you in the stage of your life? Because remember, in December, there are other men that we want to use you as a person to speak to.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bulelani Matenjwa, a ward councillor here in Motherwell, and this is where the homecoming is going to be. And of course, as you've heard, that immediately after the elderly men that have been asked by the community members, including the ward councillors, to speak or rather say some words of advice to these young men, immediately after that, these young men will then be handed over to their families, and they'll, have their own traditional celebrations at home, away from the rest of the men who have come from the bush, who are here now at this particular welcoming at the councillor's office in Motherwell.
And of course, Siphosethu, we cannot ignore how fortunate these young men are to actually be there and be celebrating this homecoming, given the fact that we have seen a number of deaths being reported, as well as bogus initiation schools popping up across the province with warnings that they need to be contained, they need to be regulated, and of course shut down if operating illegally.
That's quite correct, Mpho. You remember that just last year, around June, we did a story of a young boy who comes from the rural areas of the Eastern Cape who had spoken to a friend and arranged that he also go to initiation school without the consent of parents. And of course, the parents saying that they had no knowledge of this particular situation. And the child had negotiated with another friend who was going to go to initiation school. So the issue of, unlicensed inqibis is one issue that many of the families, as well as the House of Traditional Leaders in the Eastern Cape, are really going to take quite seriously, because these are issues that in most cases result to the deaths of initiates. And of course, we've seen a 22 an amount of raise on number as far as the previous 2022 summer season initiation deaths in the Eastern Cape province. And I'm just going to move out of shot quickly just to give you a sense of what's happening now. I heard one of the elderly men speaking and just giving direction in the sense of what exactly is now going to happen, and also alerting these young men of what is expected to happen. It's going to be quite a short program, Paul, considering the fact that these young men have not seen their parents in close to a month, and from what I hear from the councillor as well, the eldest of these young men is actually 23, which is quite different from the 2022 initiation season, summer season, that the Nongoza Jebe and the KwaZakhele, New Brighton area had produced, because the eldest there in 2022 was actually over 40 years old. So the eldest here in this group of 18 is actually 23, and some of them are actually 18 and are going to be doing matric and have to go back to school next week. So all of these proceedings will be taking place here, and then further on they'll be handed over to their communities, but most importantly to their families, as we've heard from Councillor Matenjwa, that many of them come from households where there's only mothers, and it's quite a thing in the Eastern Cape, which makes it a very tricky situation, because this is a particular ceremony in our tradition and culture that is led by, of course, men. So that particular issue is also one that it needs to be, looked at, and the support be given to these households that are led by mothers to ensure that everything is done respectfully in a sacred manner, as it is important, Paul.